Welcome to the webinar on Going Digital. In this webinar, we would like to talk to you about something very important and something very near and dear to our heart. That's the whole concept of going digital. As you know, or even have witnessed firsthand, we are living in a digital age. After a first wave of disruption with the likes of Wikipedia, iTunes, Amazon, and Expedia, and a more recent second wave with Airbnb, Uber, and Netflix, every industry will become digital to some extent. Even the most physical industries will have a digital element, and most industries will have a sizable digital element, banks and insurance companies being a perfect example. Banks were surprised when suddenly PayPal came out of the woodwork, creating a cross-border payment service, surprising them and eating out of their profitability. So as CEO, enterprise architect, or information manager, you might wonder how to best prepare for such a different world. Or you might still be pondering if you need to go digital. The answer for us is a definite yes. You will need to go digital. Otherwise, you run the risk of being surprised and overtaken by your competitors. So what we like to talk to you about is what is digital, what does going digital mean, and where to start today. With me, I have two people that I will interview on this topic. But first, let's look at the agenda for the next 40 minutes or so. So we are going to introduce the people around the table. We're going to talk about the two companies, Sanoma and Yenlo, and then we're going to dive in with four separate topics. The first one being digital transformation, then what changes are needed to be busy with digital transformation, what does the future of digital transformation look like, and finally, how can you run your digital transformation? So the more hands-on do's and don'ts with regards to digital transformation. And after that, a short wrap-up and a thank you to my people here on this webinar. So with me, I have Joost van der Doel, Senior Enterprise Architect at Sanoma Learning. Joost loves to improve processes and capabilities, and he is actually a very outspoken advocate for a digital transformation. Hans Bot is a Senior Enterprise Architect at Yenlo, experienced in the digital world, and has also been involved in the Sanoma Learning case that we will discuss. So both gentlemen not only know each other, but they've been working together, making the world become a little bit more digital. My name is Rob Blauboer. I'm a trainer and integration consultant here at Yenlo, and I spend most of my time teaching people how to use the WSO2 products and so on. So with these introductions out of the way, we are going to talk about Sanoma Learning. Joost, for people who do not know Sanoma Learning, can you explain a little bit about the company, and is it Sanoma or Sanoma or Sanoma or?
Thank you, Rob. We refer to it as Sanoma, and Sanoma means Finnish for message, and it describes also our company. We are a digital publisher. We work with magazines, newspapers, and our division is focusing on educational material. So we are a holding of educational publishers, creating textbooks, instruction books, and teachers' material for primary and secondary education mainly. We do that in several countries in Europe: Finland, Sweden, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Poland. And I worked for 5 years at Sanoma in the role as enterprise architect. And one of my biggest tasks there was to guide and be the ambassador of the digital transformation, which we will come to in a moment.
Okay. But first a question, did your digital transformation start 5 years ago with your working at the company, or was there already a process going on?
The process was going on, but it became more serious, I would say, at that time. There was a lot of ad hoc initiatives before that. And then at headquarters in the holding, they said, we really want to give it power to the transformation, really take a program approach there. And they said, we need an enterprise architect to guide us in this process. And I'm still grateful for that decision.
Okay, well, that's a very good point to talk about on a little bit later on, about how can you make it work for yourself, because I think there are some points that we can have as takeaways for other organizations who want to go digital. Okay, so a little bit about you. We'll talk more in depth about the stuff that you offer as a company to your clients a little bit later on. There is also, of course, the company of Yenlo. Hans, can you tell me a little bit about what this great company does?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Well, Yenlo is an expert in providing highly scalable integration and API management solutions, specifically based on open source Java technologies. To that regard, Yenlo is the premier partner of WSO2. We provide consultancy, training, product support, and managed services. We are headquartered in the Netherlands. We have offices across Europe and the United States, where we also find most of our clients. Sometimes worldwide organizations, sometimes local organizations. And we are an active participant in the WSO2 community, and proud to be an active participant there. And we try to enable the customers all over the world to find, share, and present open source solutions based on this technology stack.
Okay, that really sounds good. So let's dive into the digital transformation. So when you talk about digital transformation, what do we mean by that? What do you, Joost, see as a digital transformation?
Yeah, I think to start with that, we started by being a book publisher. As mentioned, you have a lengthy process to create a book. Can be a project up to 3 years, and then we have a new method in the market which will be used for 10 years. And it can be instruction books, workbooks, and supporting material. But part of the digital transformation is that we want to not be a book provider, but really provide digital solutions for teachers and students. And I have a short movie to introduce what that means.
With bigger and more diverse classrooms and increasing pressure to improve results, teachers more than ever have their hands full. At Sanoma Learning, we recognise the needs of the teachers and pupils. With personalised learning technology, teachers will be empowered to engage each child in the unique way he or she likes to learn. This will ensure higher learning outcomes without adding additional workload. Let's see how this could work in the near future. Here is Miss Olin. She teaches French to a class of 25 pupils, each unique in their own way. Let's focus on 3 of them to see how Miss Olin will use personalised learning to help them to develop their full potential. Here's John. John loves football. He is very smart and quickly understands concepts, but he just doesn't find French interesting. He didn't complete his last 2 homework assignments. Miss Olin recognises that she needs to engage him better so he doesn't slip behind. And here's Marianne. Marianne loves music. She also loves French and thinks it's a beautiful language. And then there's Peter, the artist. Peter has difficulty with French vocabulary and past tenses. Miss Olin knows that she has to bring Peter up to speed quickly before he gets demotivated. So after class, Miss Olin logs onto her computer and assigns homework. She enters her pupils' preferences, interests, current level, and automatically gets homework recommendations unique for each of them. She reviews them, makes some changes, and sends them out electronically. At home, John logs onto his laptop to do his homework. He has to read a French article about the great French football player Zidane.
Okay, well, we'll cut it short there. There is another 2 minutes of video that you can take a look at it. If you Google for Miss Olin and Sanoma, you will probably find it on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
That's a very big departure from where you came from. Was it driven by teachers or was it driven by you as a visionary in the organization to move to a digital strategy?
Mostly by us as a publisher, that we believe that the world is going more digital. There are some schools we are really want to investigate that and want to go forward with that. What you see here that we as a publisher are driving the market. And what you then see is that in this video is that becoming digital is much more than just providing your books as books behind glass, but your whole relationship with the customers is changing. We now know what a student is doing. We now know what answers he is answering wrong or good, how much time it takes. So we can influence the learning experience and in that sense become much more effective.
Okay, so with your technology, it seems to be that you're able to give better education to pupils, helping them to overcome the problems that they have, whether it's not understanding the materials and stuff like that. So that's a very profound and very interesting technology that you have there.
And what I like is that you state your technology, because yes, part of it is ours, but because we are now digital, we can also use components from others to build up an ecosystem. And we are not only dependent on what we are doing, but if someone has a great tool in which you can simulate, for instance, science experiments, we can combine that with our material, and that sense, become much stronger in the market.
As a student, I think I would have loved that, and I can imagine that you are also no longer constrained by sloppy teachers.
Our philosophy is still that the teacher is the killer app in education, but indeed the supporting material becomes much better to support the teacher in that process. And the level of engagement is becoming much better because the attractivity of the solutions and the personalization.
As I said, I would have loved that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I think that education is permanent, so you need to keep on learning the whole of your life. So perhaps in the future, some other learning tools will also have this capability. One of the things that some of the skeptics listening say is, haven't we been trying this for years and years and years? So what makes our time now we're doing it different from our previous experiments? Hans, do you have any?
Yeah, I discussed that a lot, and what you basically see is that there are disruptions going on, they are taking place, and every industry is looking around and is basically preparing for the next disruption. And if you dive into that, then business people, leaders in the business are increasingly aware that IT can be used as a disruptor, and it is something that can give them a competitive edge. They are thinking about creating communities and being successful as a community, and at the same time there can only be so much successful communities. So moving early can give them an advantage and can assure the long-term continuity of their enterprise.
Okay. Well, I remember I think a book written a couple of years ago, or actually an article in the Harvard Business Review, where it was said IT doesn't matter. But in your opinion, IT does matter.
That depends how you look at it. I know the article, and it basically stated that IT should be an integral part of your business. And I'm very much in sync with that message, because I'm of the opinion that if you truly want to become a digital enterprise, then IT is part of the equation. IT is part of the experience you provide your customers with. IT is part of the product and services you as a business provide to your customers. So it's not something separate from your business anymore. It's integrated into your business.
How does that work at your company, Joost?
Yeah, I like the question, why is the time right? I think indeed we have now some examples that it works in reality. And although you were asking what the driver for us to become digital, it's not as much as the schools, but people at home are used to work with modern digital applications more and more because we have those examples in the market which works. You provided the examples in your introduction. And those people are coming now back on the school with old-fashioned material, and they demand, we want to have digital with a certain experience. Yeah, and that's, I think, the driver which helps us now in that era of digital.
So almost as real time as Wikipedia, where there might be an article on Macron becoming the next president of France one day after the fact, whereas any book or anything else will lag considerably.
Yeah, that's what is written down on this slide. Is also that it's not merely an product change, but our whole ecosystem is changing. Where we have a publishing process taking 3 years, delivering a method, that cannot be done anymore. You need to go to a continuous enterprise. And that is seen in our case in the editorial process, but also in the ordering process. When you deliver books and there is every night a file sent to our warehouse for the picking list, that's okay. But if someone orders a digital product, you want to have access in a few minutes at most. So indeed, that's one of the things. It's not a product change, but your whole organization is turned inside out to become digital.
Mm-hmm. And you go as far as printing on demand, that basically when someone orders a book, they get the latest and greatest version?
Yes and no. We have thought about it, but it's way too expensive to do that. But you can imagine that when a method is at the end of its life cycle, that's still a feasible option. But when you need to create bulk like that, it's a matter of cost why we don't do it.
Okay. So digital is not only faster, it is a cheaper way of distributing your material to people.
For the books, etc., yes, but for the digital, yeah, everything is online, live, and that way we can easily interact and change the content and work even on a finer granularity.
Okay, Hans, anything to add? On
yeah,
this?
well, I think in general, to generalize it again, becoming digital changes the relation you have with your customers, but also with your suppliers and with your employees. And you need to think carefully about how changing this relation impacts your business processes.
Okay. I think we have a slide on that, the order to cash slide. Shall we take a look at that one?
Yeah. Okay,
so there's a very nice acronym, which I know the first one is order to cash, and then 4, and then CFA. So can you take it away, explain a little bit to our listeners what we are seeing here?
This is a slide from a reference model we are using, and it's called order to cash for customer-facing applications. Where we originally had an order to cash process, where you place an order, you have the fulfillment process, and in the end, you send to a warehouse where books are shipped. We were looking at how can we reuse this process in a digital world. What would be our digital warehouse, being a kind of license office? And how can we make sure that you can have orders where you combine physical and digital products and order them, also taking that real time into account? And I think this is also one of the big things of the digital transformation is how can you bring your legacy landscape, how can you modularize it and bring it into use in the digital world. And that's what we have done here, and this reference model supports that. And also there, the role of integration middleware, like WSO2, plays a very important role to make that happen.
Okay, so what we're seeing here, what is the status of this image, of this reference image? Is this something that you strive to have, or that you already have, or that you're improving on?
That's the beauty that we have multiple operating companies, so we are in the middle. Some already have this fully in place, and others are in the process of bringing this into place.
Okay, so it's a work in progress. When do you expect all of your operating companies to be at least on the same page as far as this goes?
End of 2018.
Okay, that's not too bad. So when you do something of this magnitude, this is something that will rock your organization because they were used to doing stuff in a certain way.
Yes.
Print a book, store it, sell it. Print, store, sell. So what does this change in the organization mean for your business or even your business model? Is that going to change?
Absolutely. You need to have ambassadors who are really working in the business to convince them that they need to change, because things are going well at the moment. So you need to believe in this to invest for the future, and that's crucial to get this going. And what we then do is also take small steps on this journey to make this happen and to show that it actually brings results. It brings customer satisfaction, and that way, we could go further and further on this.
Are you considered a leader in this area compared to your fellow publishing houses?
Yes. Since we are also a publishing house with different operating companies, that gives us also some power to do things together, and that really helped to become a front runner here.
Okay. So, Hans, when you move from a predominant old school, well, it's a very nice.
Currently, SOA is already old school.
To some such a digital world, what do you think are the design decisions from an IT perspective to support an enterprise in going digital?
Yeah, well, an easy one to talk about is API management. API management allows you to basically create a policy enforcement point at the edge of your network. It shields your existing services, and it allows you to create policies and manage who has access and who has to pay, etc., etc. So this enables you to decouple the development of your services and APIs and the implementation, and that allows you to move much quicker. There is also another thing to take into consideration, and that's also to do with speeding up things. If you have a policy enforcement point that allows you to manage your policies more or less real time, you don't need to spend as much effort as you used to do in the SOA days in protecting all your services, in designing all your policies and implementing them. You can do that on the go. And this is a change. As an industry, we are still trying to embrace and adopt.
Okay, Joost, I hear a lot about cloud-based deployment, cloud environments, cloud is the future. Can you tell a little bit about what your approach is to that technology, cloud real time? Are you in the cloud, or do you want to be in the cloud, or what's your stance?
Our statement in the company is we want to use IT assets and not build them. So indeed, we use a lot of cloud technology in our organization to be able to leverage what others have done in a scalable manner, in a secure manner, but make sure that others provide it to us and we consume it as services, as assets, as components. So we use a lot of cloud components, and also our WSO2 platform is on cloud infrastructure, but also itself deployed in such a way that it are really integration services provided to the organization. In that sense, also important what Hans was mentioning about the API managers. We want to hide the systems behind it, but make sure that we can access them in a real-time manner so that we can use those services and not think too much about how they are constructed, which was more the old way of thinking in IT.
So do you have, is everything in the cloud? Is your whole digital environment a cloud-based environment, or are you mixing and matching some on-premise, some cloud stuff?
The vision is to bring everything to the cloud, but we are in the process of doing that and business case driven grow to that situation.
Okay. One of the things that is often mentioned when we talk about cloud is also the cost perspective. And I didn't hear it in your answer with regards to going to the cloud. Can you say something about the cost perspective or the benefits of going into the clouds rather than having all of your hardware and stuff?
I think it's a tough question because it's partially business case driven and partially a belief, because you cannot put everything in the business case. We always seriously consider when we look at something, should we do this on premise or should we do this in the cloud, also from a financial perspective. But next to the current operational costs, also the flexibility is important. And are we ourselves able to have systems which are having that guaranteed operations levels what other parties can provide? So I really think you need to look also from a cost perspective, but for me it's a broader discussion than just cost.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. And I mean, you want to have something, if it's not running but it's dirt cheap, then it's no value. So so we talked a little bit about the changes that you would need, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the final topic on how does the listener to this webinar make the change for the digital. But I would like to talk a little bit about the future. The future is of course very hard to predict, as famously Niels Bohr has been quoted to have mentioned. Hans, what do you think, what does the future hold for us? More of the same or something completely different?
Yeah, as far as I can see, we're in some kind of transformation, and we are going to experience transformation, and a speedy transformation, for as far as I can look forward. I often say that going digital is a journey, and it is an ongoing journey, and we're more or less trying to experiment and learn how in this new digital age we can be as effective and successful as possible. What I like to stress is something I call situational awareness. If you want to be successful in this digital age, you have to be on top of your information. You have to know what's going on your platform and in your communities, and also have the competence to react on things going on. That can be defensive, if some competitor is entering the market with new products or new technologies. It can also be offensive if you see new opportunities. But the thing is, you're continuously on the move, and you keep on moving, if only, how do you say that, to keep up with the rest of the world.
Okay. Well, with my experience in the IT world, when I started as a COBOL programmer back in the 1980s, someone said to me, well, COBOL, give it 4 or 5 years. IMS's database, 2 years, 3 years, will be DB2 after that time. Okay, fast forward to 2017. We still have a lot of COBOL going around. So, Joost, can you say something about the future, but keeping in mind that there is still what we call legacy stuff around there. So what would be your ideal future situation?
First of all, to keep COBOL, because I was a COBOL programmer as well, and when there are not too many anymore, I will sell myself in the market. But we will always keep legacy, because today we create things and in 5 years we call it legacy. So what I see in the future is not treat legacy as a problem, but how can we make sure that also the legacy components become part of our ecosystem and can work in our ecosystem. That's also the reason why we focused on adopting the enterprise service bus and the API manager to be able to do that, because you cannot change all your legacy at once. But what you need is that your whole ecosystem can easily adapt, because no one can predict the future. I think the recent past have shown that. But it's crucial to be able to adapt to new market needs. And also what Hans was stating, the data is very important. If you have that flexible landscape, you can also make your data available and build new services upon that. I just showed in the movie the example of personalized learning. That's only the beginning. But what can we do with data of a student to make sure that his learning process becomes more effective? And then from a technology perspective, a lot is possible, but we also need to look at regulations, etc., so that data is protected in the right way.
Yeah, that's another very important thing, because the data, I saw an identity and access management solution in the overview that you showed. It's of course vitally important that only the teacher knows the progress of the student, and perhaps even the parents are not allowed access to that unless the teacher gives them access. Is that a correct situational drawing?
Yeah, and that's also why we made that whole solution a separate component, so that we control the access of teachers and students, etc., and make sure that we also can that way comply to legislations with regards to privacy and security.
Are they the same across Europe, or do you find wildly differing legislative environments as to data protection and stuff like that?
There is one European law which will be effective next year, but there are also local differences per country where we have to cope with, since we are in multiple countries.
Do you have the experience and you have the knowledge to implement that so it complies with all of the standards?
We are working on that.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good. Hans, WSO2 is busy with new products, new services.
Yeah, it's time for a WSO2 plug here. I was thinking about that. If you're designing for a future state and you're not sure about what the future state is, and one thing you want to have is versatility. You want to have a supplier that not only covers your current needs, but also your future needs. WSO2 offers an integrated platform, a rich platform, and is continuously investing in the platform to keep up with technological developments and to create new technological opportunities. So you can be pretty confident that this platform will not only help you today, but also in years to come. And that's, I guess, an important thing if you design for the future.
And it's also an open platform, I'm led to understand.
It is open. It's open like crazy. I mean, everything is available on the internet. The sources are available on the internet. The gyro tickets are available on the internet. I mean, you can, if you invest in it a little bit, you can do magic on this platform.
Joost, did open source scare you?
No. We have a policy that we always look first at open source solutions. We work a lot with Java-based solutions. So in that sense, WSO2 was for us a natural choice when we made the choice. And if it's too difficult for us, Yenlo is our API.
Yeah. So you've really, yeah.
And there is one thing to add, if I may, Rob. If you have a traditional license model, you have a buy-in and platform. And if you have made, for one reason or another, a wrong choice, you have to disinvest a lot. And this is also a barrier to change. Open source technology also, let's say, keeps you fit and keeps you able to change rapidly.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about what digital transformation means in general. It's a disruptive force that will touch every industry regardless of what they do. We talked about what it means to Joost and his company. We talked a little bit about the future. So what are the giveaways or the takeaways that we can give to people when they want to be digital transformers as well? Hans, can I?
Oh yeah, there are a couple. One is start as soon as possible. as soon as you start experimenting and trying things out, you start learning. You start building up experience and you start building up, hopefully, your community. So don't wait for that and start as soon as possible.
Okay, I've got a challenge for you. I'm going to be the devil's advocate. My answer would be there is no client demanding that, your digital transformation. What would be your response to a naysayer in the digital transformation?
Well, there are many examples of successful businesses that never listen to existing customer demand. I mean, you know all the examples. A lot of them are in the summary already. Nobody asked for Facebook, for instance. And there are many such examples. In the beginning, nobody trusted digital photography. Look around now, there is no Kodak anymore. So changes happen not because customers are in need of the change, but you entice them to embrace new and exciting things. And that's another way of thinking, and that also refers to the business case we discussed earlier. A business case is a pretty old-fashioned way of thinking about digital transformation. Digital transformation is typically done from a vision of a better world. I don't think Elon Musk has ever made a business case for a self-driving car.
No. Could be.
What I think to add to that, if you look at our organization, we didn't flip the switch and said now we are a digital company. We start with one of our applications become digital, and then people see it, the market sees it, and then people become enthusiastic, and then you make the step. So that would also be one of my lessons learned. Get people around you who also believe it and make a small step, prove that it works, and you'll be surprised. I think one of the examples is Bingel, our homework application in Belgium. It's amazing if you see what a market share that got, simply because people believed in it and started it, and now you have a storified application. Coming back to what Hans is saying, you want to go back to school if you see that application.
Okay, another one for you, Joost. I don't have any money, I don't have any budget. What's your answer? I don't have time, I'm doing maintenance, I don't have time for all this new fashion stuff.
Also there, my first answer would be start small and prove it, because then you will in the end also have the case to get the budget. If you have a successful application live, your customers are happy with it, and they are then demanding more, then the discussion is much easier to get budget available. So don't start too big, but with a simple thing and prove your case.
How about the need for an executive sponsor? How do you see that? Is that something that is nice to have, or is it a must-have, or should have?
Of course, that helps. And in our case, after those first, let's say, proof of concepts worked, those pilots worked in the market, yeah, then you get executive sponsorship, and it resulted in a program. Then you have the momentum. You can do things together. You have budget available. Of course, that helps you forward. But for the first steps to get that enthusiasm, you can do it by smaller initiatives. Of course, you need a believer, but I believe then later on the executive will follow.
Okay.
That's also what we see a lot in the market, that changes don't happen only bottom up, they don't happen only top down, they happen outside in.
Okay, I think we're going towards the end of the webinar. Any last comments? Anything that you just want to add because it's vitally important, or it will help organizations move to a digital transformation forward? Hans?
Yeah, I think a lot has already been said. From my perspective, it is really something different if you start designing a platform to support your business end to end. Designing a platform to support a community with customers, with suppliers, and with employees. That's a different way of working, a different kind of design. And in this community, the best thing to do is and that's again something I guess I learned from Apple, phonetically fight any friction there is. The barrier to entry to a platform should be very low for everybody, especially for customers, but also you want your suppliers to have an easy buy-in to your platform, to your community. So that's something to be aware of. Make it easy to integrate, make it easy to connect, and be available everywhere where your customers and your suppliers are.
Yes. Your 2 cents in this?
My take would be start, take small steps, but don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can't predict what's coming out of it, but simply start and do it. And yeah, when something is going wrong, take a step back and try again. But I think that's the only way to go.
Okay, and if you are hesitant, you will be dead meat, I guess, because your competitors will overtake you.
And accept that's a journey, and what we said often to each other, enjoy the journey. Yeah. Not just the end result, but enjoy the journey.
It's different for different enterprises, I guess. When you're working for a tax office, I don't think there is competition there. So there are other considerations to become a more agile, more effective organization. It's not always about competition only.
That is true. We tend to think of the world as being a cutthroat competition world, but in some cases there are other reasons to do that.
Just to make a better world. Do we need a better reason than that?
That's true. There's also a beautiful ending to this webinar. If you have any questions with regards to digital transformation, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. You will find all of the information below the link where you found this this webinar. I would like to thank Joost and Hans for their contribution. I've learned a lot, and well, hope to catch you next time on another webinar on another very exciting topic. Thank you, gentlemen, and well, good. Thanks.
Goodbye.